IVM.
Hi friends, so we are coming to the last episode of season 2 of the Vishal Gondal show, and my guest today is a very, very special person. Special because this person is associated with me now for several years. Not only that, she's also been associated with the show ever since we started. And not only that, she's also an award-winning journalist. And not only that, she's also mountaineer. I don't know how many mountains she has climbed. But above all of this, she's also what I call the disaster queen. What I mean by that if there is any disaster happening anywhere in the world, before the military or the Red Cross or anybody can turn up there, you will find her already in the field helping people out, which is amazing. And beyond all of this, she's also an investigative journalist. So she's not just any journalist, she can investigate the hell out of things. And because of that, she was helping me on the show, and she was investigating or helping me research all the guests who you've been listening on the show. So she's very much part of my team. I'm really, really happy and proud to welcome Anusha Subramanian on my show. Anusha, welcome.
Thank you, Vishal, and it's such a pleasure to be sitting opposite now after having done all the research on all the people. Sitting here now, going to be fielding questions that you throw at me.
Well, these are not questions I'm sure you've already researched all the questions.
Have a conversation.
You've
Thank
already
you so
researched
much.
all those questions. And I remember just a few weeks back, I told Anusha that the next guest on my show is going to be very difficult. I don't know if she'll even have time and all of that. And what was your reaction? Who did you think I was calling?
I didn't. I was actually first thinking, who is he talking about? But then you gave away when you said she's always in the mountains. So I said, okay, probably it's me. But I didn't want to think that way.
No, but Anusha, really, I have to say that your story and what you have done and what you have been doing in your life is so inspirational. And it inspires me every time you do all these amazing things, that I wanted you to be on the show and share your amazing journey, your amazing life lessons to everybody out there. Because there are many, many journalists who do really boring work. And I remember, so we met again, God knows how many years back. When was that?
Yeah, I think early 2000, and it used to be a regular affair. We used to meet every March, remember, at the FICCI Frames
conference. Yeah. And you were covering media.
I used to cover media and, a little bit of IT and gaming and stuff like that, but largely the business of media, because of which it became very important for me, having also been working on a business newspaper, covering these conferences.
And that is when you were with Business Standard.
Yeah, so it all started with Business Standard, and then of course I've moved up in career. But yeah, we first met when I was in Business Standard, and the best part of our relationship is more friendship, and I don't remember writing too much about you as a
exactly.
journalist.
And
yes, I remember very well that when I used to write on certain topics on technology, I would definitely call you to get a perspective from you, because you had this innate ability to actually explain the situation. And, I used to least think that, oh man, this guy is the CEO of a company, and I'm like calling him, I'm saying, I don't understand this. Can you explain it to me? And you'd just do it, And I think that's where, as a journalist also, I had a lot of respect for you. But then I also didn't want to kind of spoil the relationship by writing every other story on India Games or something like that. But then, I'm glad.
The only thing I remember about you during those days, more than your journalist, because I met many journalists, I remember that you were the only journalist who used to climb mountains. And I was like, how cool is that? Because I did not know of any journalist who was a mountaineer.
Yeah, and there was a stage in my career as a journalist also where people never ask me what stories are you doing. They're like, which mountain are you climbing next? Because every time they would, know that hey man, this woman is again gone off for a month and we don't know where she is. So yeah, so that was the best part of I think my career as a journalist also, where after a certain point in time it came to a stage wherein people started asking me, what are the mountains
But you know
you're
what?
climbing?
So, I mean, again, your story is I'm very curious about it, because you are I'm sorry to say, a Madrasi girl born in Mumbai, living in Garodia Nagar,
Yeah.
which is like the Madras or the South India of Mumbai, you know. And you are surrounded by people who are studying a lot, and, you know, I presume you also studied a lot. There is no mountain here. I mean, in Mumbai there are hills, and yeah, you can call that. And suddenly your interest in mountaineering, because traditionally we have seen people who've been living in Shimla, Darjeeling, Uttarakhand. I mean, it's normal for them to
Yeah.
learn or, you know, be interested in mountaineering. So how does a Madrasi girl from Mumbai, who can barely go through all the potholes, decided to climb mountains?
Yeah, that's right. My mom says that you have to be careful when you're walking on the road, because you don't come injured when you go into the mountains, but you always come injured when you're walking on the road. Yeah, so I always came. So in my family, the one thing I must credit my parents and my grandparents is that we always were allowed to think independently, and we were allowed to do what we wanted to do. So I was a very sporty child right from the childhood.
You were playing basketball?
I
and
was
stuff.
playing basketball in school, and
And which
being the
school did you
youngest
go
in the
to?
family, I went to Fatima.
Oh, that's Ghatkopar West.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we had a very, very good sporting culture in school. So I started with athletics, started playing basketball, I think, when I was in class 5, secondary stand. And sports was in my blood. My dad used to be a boxer. And
Boxer?
yeah, so...
From South India?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I've not heard of many.
And he was a great football fanatic. So my love for football also
And
came.
they were always in Mumbai, or they moved
So
here
my
from Chennai?
dad and my mom actually hail from Chennai. My mom hails from Chennai. My dad hails from actually interiors of Tamil Nadu. But my dad was a mechanical engineer, and then he came to Bombay. He had the experience of working abroad. So they moved to the place that I currently live in when I was born. So that is, I was born in Chembur as well.
Yeah, we are both born in Chembur. That's unique. Yeah.
Yeah. So right from childhood, a very
No,
sporty
but again,
kid.
as you know, South Indians are very studious. Education is more important. They end up doing science and engineering and medicine. That's the stereotype. I'm not saying, but you know, you were like this black sheep in the family, huh?
No, actually, my sister is also into media, and it so happened that
And your younger sister or elder sister?
elder sister.
Okay.
So the culture of reading newspapers, my grandfather had this very, very important ritual that we had to adhere to every week, is go to the library and pick up one book a week, and we had to complete that book. And so the reading habit was inculcated, habit of newspaper was inculcated at a very young age. We had to read at least like one page, you know, of news. So
Today the problem is the news is so bad that you don't want people to read the
read
news.
newspaper, exactly. I mean, sometimes I feel ashamed to say that, you know, I'm a journalist. But then, you know, then when the TV culture came out in, you know, 80s, and DD News used to be brilliant. And I used to watch Luku Sanyal, I used to watch Usha Albuquerque, Dolly Thakur, and several of these news readers. And it was stuck in my mind that I want to be a news reader. But that time I didn't have the concept of journalism, reporting. Those kind of things were not a part of my concept. All I knew was I want to read news, and I quite enjoy it. Even when I used to read news as a child, I mean, I used to always ask my grandfather, you know, he's like, how do you think this news has been written? And I was quite interested. It's only as I was growing up, and, you know, by the time I came to class 11, I think I was very clear that I wanted to do something in the humanities space, and I wanted to become a journalist.
Wow, you were clear in your 11th
Yeah.
standard.
I was very clear. And although I was obsessed with basketball and sports, which is why I chose the college that I had to go to, because
which is
which is
SIS.
SIS, and it was a winning college for basketball team. So I knew that school ke baad, now college.
And that was commerce. You took commerce?
No,
there?
I took arts. I
Arts,
took
yeah,
arts.
of
And
course.
the best part was that I had fantastic percentage in 10th. And they refused to give me admission in, here's the South Indian Tambram girl going to South Indian Education Society College. And they said, no, call your parents. I said, no, parents are not coming to get my admission. I am here to get my admission, and I want admission in arts.
So they wanted you to take something else.
They wanted me to take science. So
then, why are you taking arts? So what is wrong with you with this kind of marks?
No, that is exactly what they said, that this is not the right decision you're taking. You're young. You can't take these decisions. Your parents have to tell you. Somewhere, I think my dad, I was also very good in sketching and all that. Dad had a slight inclination that, okay, if not engineering, at least like do architecture or something. But I was very clear. I have to play basketball. So I have to give a lot of time for basketball. I can't be spending time in science labs, taking science and all that. And that was not part of my...
and all that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And that was not part of my... Yeah, because I remember even in school, my chemistry experiments, I think most of the experiments my lab assistant have done it. I used to be so scared that I used to always think these chemicals are going to explode into my face. And then I used to think, oh God, then how will I play basketball? So everything surrounded around basketball.
So you end up taking arts
because I wanted to play basketball.
That's a good decision.
That's
a good decision.
And although I was not sure whether I'll take it up professionally or no, it was like
and did you do any course specific for journalism? Or?
Yes. So by the second year, I knew I wanted to major in economics. And professional basketball was not something that was on my top of my mind at all at that point in time, because by then I had kind of matured a bit to realize that how long will I play basketball even if I played professionally. So I said, so career pe dhyan dena padega. And in the third year, when we finished our exams and everything, under peer pressure, and actually a lot of my friends were giving their CET MBA exams. So I said, even let me give.
You gave an MBA exam?
Yeah. I gave a CET exam as well, and I cleared it very well.
You can clear any exam. Huh? That's the part of their Tamil DNA in you. Huh?
Probably, I don't know. And also got a call from a good college. But I am glad that I didn't do MBA today. Because I went there and there was this group discussions and everything did very well. And then finally in the personal interview, they come back to, your academic records. Which is, I'm fine. I was first class student, but not like 90% or 80% kind of a thing. Then I thought to myself, I said, if everything boils down to your academics and your overall capabilities, personality, your group discussion, how you communicate, how you talk is not going to be applicable, then I don't want to do this. And that is when I decided that I came out of that college gate. I called my mom up and said, I'm just going to go and get my admissions in journalism. And I told her this is cheaper than MBA, definitely. And I will become a journalist and I will write about the shitty education system.
Wow.
That was my whole thought process.
Normally, journalism is not looked at as a serious profession, unfortunately, in this country, right?
Yes.
And you had an opportunity to take up science, you had an opportunity to take up architecture, even MBA. And you gave all of that up to take up journalism.
Yeah, and also at that point in time, I think my sister was also quite an influence because she was into television production and, advertising and all of that. And she would, actually because I used to play basketball and I was so in love with my, sporting kits and everything, I used to take tuitions to make my money because my father said anything you want to do besides what you're already doing, then you have to fend for yourself. So that is something that was inculcated.
And which college did you finally join for journalism?
Somaya.
Okay, Somaya had a journalism course.
Yeah. They had a 1-year journalism course, which was good. We had good professors and it was a good course. Within 6 months, I got an internship in Midday.
Okay.
And then I joined Midday as a trainee once I finished my course.
And this is which year was this?
94.
1994. Wow.
Yeah. 94 December, I remember very well that I joined as an intern and then joined as
And during that time, it was a very different time of journalism, right? There was no TV, was not that big. There was no internet. I think it was newspapers were the only real source, and magazines maybe.
Yeah, that's right. Because I would credit today my success in journalism and the way my thought process and all of that to my editors. And especially my first editor was Ayaz Memon. Their way of mentoring was very different, in the sense that there was a certain task given to you and there was a deadline given to you. Now, how you do it, you have to do it ethically, of course, because you're a journalist, you're responsible to public and all of that. But it wasn't like sitting on your head and thinking, ye story lao, ye story lao. So you were given freedom, but at the same time, there was certain responsibility that was very silently, put over you. So it was a great learning process for me, because I remember when I first joined Midday, we were not, for almost 3.5 months, every day we would file a story. A couple of us who had joined as trainees. And you won't see that story in the newspaper. And then, your chief reporter or your bureau chief would never say anything, why the story. And as a youngster, you would expect
feel very
that.
Disappointed.
Yeah, you would expect that, you are told something that, okay, you made a mistake here. This is not a right story. This is not how you write a story and all that. But they never said anything. It's only one day when I think a colleague of mine had broken a story in the morning, and then I followed up that story in the evening, in the night, basically. I was on the night shift. And next day, the story was a front page story, and which is when I think I got a note from the editor saying that this is what is expected. That is when you realize, that, okay, this is exactly how you go about it.
What kind of stories were you doing? Was it like crime or masala?
No, all kinds of stories. I mean, we were initially we were put through, the news desk. You were put through this desk where you only selected page 3. Your midday mates, or rather.
Yeah, midday mates.
Yeah. Then
journalists were involved in selecting the midday mates?
Interns sometimes. Okay. Now I don't know what the process. Now obviously a lot of thing has changed. Then we were given an opportunity to, and of course reporting desk. All of us actually joined as a reporter. Then I moved to the business desk. Because I'd done economics, and so I actually covered business for some time.
For Midday?
For Midday also. Almost a year I covered business for Midday. So it used to be like, stock market, business story. And it was stories with a different feel and,
So you went from Midday to Business Standard?
Yeah, then when I was quitting Midday after about 3 years, in about end 1999, I think, my only option was a business newspaper.
Because you were like covering business.
Now again, I was covering business as well, and I had the knowledge of business because I was an economic graduate. And while I was in Midday, I also completed 2 years of my MA in economics.
Wow!
So
this is like how much studies you do, yaar. ये सब
हाँ, मेरे को law भी करना था, लेकिन बाद में time नहीं मिला. Otherwise, I would have done law. So between law and MA, I decided.
All of this, when were you going to mountains?
Over the weekends. I used to continue my trekking over the weekends because I had
Again, this is not a normal thing to do, right? I mean, especially in...
Yeah, so, when I started with my career as a journalist, basketball had completely out of the...
So this is post... So it was not like you were doing trekking when you were in
school? I was
school.
doing trekking a bit, not so much. I had this local group of boys in the colony who I would go trekking with. So I've invariably grown up playing with the boys, everything. So I was like one amongst them, and I used to tell them, whenever you're going, you have to take me and go. So that's how I started trekking a lot in the Sahyadris. And I continued that because over the weekend I would get either a Saturday or a Sunday. And I just realized that being in the mountains for me was therapeutic. It would just let me be. It's like you don't have anybody to question you. You don't have anybody to, ask you. And, in a profession like journalism where you're continuously talking to people, it would give me my solace. Be by myself. and just lie
on
under
weekdays you were this journalist trying to fight the crime in this city and all of that, and on weekends you used
I
to
went
go...
into my shell and I would like go and sit on top of a mountain and feel good about myself. That was how it is. And even today for me, the mountains...
At what point of time, because I remember you did this major course in mountaineering, right? So I mean, going to trekking is all okay.
Yeah.
You have a very successful career in journalism. Why do you do all of this and suddenly go for this course, and what prompted, and what is this course about?
Yeah, so in 2009 when I was in Business Today, so by then, this time I had tried all means and methods. I took a sabbatical in journalism once, came back to journalism, and then I was with Business Today. My last stint was with Business Today. And in 2009, these are certain things, which I wanted to do as a part of my bucket list. One of the things was to do a course at NIM, which is in mountaineering. So it was nothing to do with कि mountaineering course करेंगे तो मतलब मेरे को ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा पहाड़ चढ़ने मिलेगा. The idea was to just understand certain nuances of
I'm just saying,
mountaineering.
Is this like a very, very like South Indian trait that, मेरे को जो भी करना है मैं उसका course करूंगा और बाद में करूंगा, like, MA, like you study so much. So it was like, again, one of those things कि before I don't study and like...
Yeah, I think you could say that. But for me, yes, it was one of those things about, I was
because
leading...
you did MA, like, for doing... I'm just saying that, so... Was it because you wanted to learn, or you was like, no,
it was because I wanted to learn. Because I was already leading treks, I was leading treks for my friend's company, went to the Himalayas. Himalayas was also a big thing for me because I used to trek so much in the Sahyadri, I had a fear of going to the Himalayas as well. Because I was a juvenile asthmatic.
Yeah, you had asthma.
So I was not sure how high altitude will treat me. So I had lost a lot of time, By the time it was 2005, I was doing so much of trekking, but I'd never stepped into the Himalayas. And then my friend said, I'm very confident, kuch nahi hoga. And my first trip in the Himalayas was to Arunachal Pradesh.
Pradesh.
Yeah, and we were doing the Indo-Bhutan trek to the Indo-Bhutan border. And my friend said that, at 10,000 feet, we are going to do an acclimatization trek. If you think you can't do that, then you feel free to come back and you can, kind of explore Arunachal otherwise, and we'll go and come back and see you. So I had made up my mind. I said, yeah, that is what. I said, if I can't do the acclimatization...
Your first trek was Arunachal Pradesh. I mean, my point is, these are not the kind of normal things you decide, right? Normally, कोई trek पे जाएगा तो, Himalaya, अपना Manali, Kullu, I mean, Kashmir, Uttaranchal. I mean, these are the normal places, Ladakh.
Yeah. But so, no, this was in 2005 and I did Arunachal Pradesh. So strangely, now when people want to do their first trek, it's either Ladakh or it is Himachal. And I went to Arunachal Pradesh to do my first trek. And I had told my friend, I said, 10,000 feet acclimatization trek doesn't happen, then I'm like back. But strange, and I remember I had taken 6 Asthalin inhalers with me. I had one which was opened. My friend said, don't open the 5. For all you know, you might just not use them. So I said, okay. And I did the walk it was like very easily I could do the walk. I had no breathlessness. I didn't, kind of wheeze or anything of that sort. And that gave me the confidence that I can do.
Trekking and all of that is great, but deciding to go and do a course is like a very serious commitment, right?
Yes. It was 1 month of commitment, which I had fantastic editor.
Which school was this?
This was NIM, Nehru Institute of Mountaineering, one of the Asia's premier institute in Uttarkashi. In Uttarkashi, yeah. And so these are institutes which are run by the Defence Ministry. So the courses are also like a boot camp.
Why is it Nehru Institute?
Actually, it was named after him also because he, I think, had a vision of mountaineering and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like imagine this is like 1950s maybe, right?
That's 60s mein this school was
even 19
started.
So,
yeah.
Wow.
So it's called the Nehru Institute of Mountaineering.
So it's a 1 month course?
Yeah, it's 28 days totally, and then to and fro, one day each to go and come back. So I was in Business Today, here I was this associate editor of Business Today, and suddenly I go and tell my boss, I said, see, I don't take leave otherwise, but as you know that 20 days, 25 days I take off to the mountains, this year I need 3 more days extra and I want to go and do my course. So he's like, okay, go. Just go. And every time I would get a job, offer anything, my only conditions to them used to be, I won't take leave at all. But in a year, I'll be off for 25 days. So you have to agree to that. I know that there are certain limitations that only 15 days you can take continuously or all that, but I need 25 days. So my editors used to tell me, why 25 days? This comes like a very pertinent kind of deal that you want, So I was like, yeah, because I go off to the mountains. So, I climb mountains and I go off to the mountains. So I need at least 25 days, I have to come back, recuperate and all that. Saying, okay, go. So this was for my basic course. I went in 2009. Now, before going for my course, I was also training. Personally, I was training. So I went and did a trek in between in Uttarakhand because I knew I was going to Uttarakhand. So I went and did a trek in Nanda Devi Sanctuary. I carried 25 kg because I knew that I will have to carry at least 20 to 22 kgs on my back when I'm doing the course. So I actually trained through this Himalayan trek. By then I was very confident that Himalayas is the thing for me. Nothing is going to happen to me. No asthma, nothing. Everything is under control. I went, trained for it, and then I went for the course 2009. And 2010 again I went back to my editor and I told her, okay, I finished the basic course, now I want to go for
advanced
an advanced course.
Oh God.
And then I went and did my advanced course.
But the most amazing thing I find about this, Anusha, is that normally people are taking leaves to go to, whatever, Bangkok and holiday and this and that. And, I think this was like I don't think so anybody is like doing this kind of mountaineering or trekking. This is like serious stuff.
Yeah. So.
And what did your colleagues think about this? Right?
They thought I was crazy. They anyways thought like I was somebody, one of those, that if I wanted to do something, I'd go full hog and do it. I would not just talk about it. And that's what has happened all through. I wanted to do journalism, I went ahead, did my journalism. I wanted to join a particular newspaper, I went and joined
the best thing is that even in journalism, you were not an average journalist. I mean, you were an award, Red Dot, it's called the Red
Ink Award.
Red Ink Award.
Yeah, which I got in 2012.
It is one of the most prestigious awards in journalism.
Yeah, and I was one of the first recipients of that when it first got instituted.
Exactly. You also got a fellowship in the UK.
Yeah. Evening scholarship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You went for that scholarship. You have then also written many award-winning articles. I mean, not just this, right? So, I mean, like you're excelling in journalism. You're not like you're just an average journalist. And then you suddenly go and excel in mountaineering both at the same time. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I was at the peak of my career in journalism when I was in Business Today and after I came back from my evening scholarship. And but there was something still amiss, I felt, I mean, I felt the job I was doing was not kind of giving me that kind of satisfaction. For me, every job that I have been in had to make me feel good because I give my 100% in my job. And somewhere when I came back from London, my perspectives changed.
And you were in London for how long?
I was in London. Actually, it was a 3-month course. And then I decided to roam around for another 2.5 months where I did a lot of climbing, trekking across England and Scotland. And, I did a lot of cycling, trekking and stuff like that, solo. I had one guide in London I had found and, he'd like take me for rock climbing, for all of these things. So then
and you took a sabbatical from your work for this? Or
no, I had lots of leave, strangely, which my colleagues still, they couldn't believe that. How is it that you have so much of leave? So, I actually utilized all my leave and I had done my dissertation.
5.5 months leave you had?
Yeah, 3 months was anyways given because I had to do the scholarship anyway. And I won that scholarship, right? And yeah, so I was on paid leave. And like I said, I never took leave. I would just take a yearly leave of 25 days or so. So I had like a lot of leaves got carried over. And I literally had about 190 days of leave. So I utilized it, or most of it. And when I came back, perspectives changed. I wanted to do something interesting even in journalism. I wanted to start a column, write about social entrepreneurs, because that was the time when social entrepreneurship was gaining
And
momentum.
how did the mountaineering affect your journalism, and how did the journalism affect your mountaineering?
It's all about communication skills, I think. And, being able to communicate. Travel was always in my blood. I love to travel. Even as a journalist in business today, I was one of the most well-traveled journalists. I'd go dig stories from some part of the country, and, I would say that, okay, here's this great story and I need to travel here to do the story. The way journalism and mountaineering has helped me is, I think, in terms of communication and my writing skills, and I've been able to tell the stories better. So, while mountaineering gets you into the hinterlands of the mountain, it gets you close to the culture of the mountain people. It gets you to meet them at very close quarters, understand them, stay with them. The life of the porters. I've always been interested in the life of the guides, mountain guides. And for me, it's been a great learning journey altogether.
The Vishal Gondal Show will be right back after this break.
Do you have a night routine? Well, everyone has one. And the to-do list usually looks like this. Brush your teeth, set that alarm, get into your pajamas, and switch off those screens. But here's one more to add to that list. Tune into the Positively Unlimited podcast for a dose of positive action and tips on how to build powerful mindsets. Episodes out every Monday on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you tune into podcasts.
The question I was trying to understand is, because your journalism has been also very hard, right? You have not done easy stories. You have taken some very tough subjects, and like the award you won was also around investigative journalism, around this whole
environment.
Environment, right? So did the mountaineering give you the courage to take up these big things, and then because you took these big things, you could take the courage?
Yes, actually mountaineering kind of helped me boost my confidence. It helped me get more clarity of thought. When you're in that kind of a space, when you're in the mountains, it helped me take better decisions. So mountaineering, in a way, I think today, if today the person I am, I would thank a great deal for mountaineering to add to that personality of mine. I come across as this very confident person. Probably many of them tell me that, oh, you're so practical in your decisions. For me, your clarity of thought is so clear. So, yes, it has helped me a lot. Mountaineering has helped me a lot in terms of understanding myself from within us.
So, and just, for us to understand, the story on environment you did, what was so amazing in that story which got you an award? Because again, there are so many stories which are done.
When I used to go to most of these places, even as trekking and all of that, and I would hear these stories of how environmental clearances are given out to people. And my investigation, I started talking to a lot of environmentalists, talk to people and all. And then I realized that there is supposed to be something called the EIA document, which is called the Environment Impact Assessment Document. So this Environment Impact Assessment Document is supposed to be like this 800 to 1000 word document, which takes into account the entire environment in that one document. It talks about air pollution, it talks about sound pollution, it talks about air particles in the air, it talks about flora, fauna, you name it and everything. And this EIA document is supposed to be made by an EIA consultant. Now, as I started talking to people and finding out more information, I realized that most of the environment projects that were getting clearances, the EIA impact assessment was being done by an EIA consultant. And this EIA consulting company used to be a company floated by this project.
itself.
Environment project जिसका होने वाला है उसी के company का. So I said, okay, so everything is just
basically what you're
interlinked.
saying is I am building a project and
You're
I
having a
only set
mining
up a
project.
company.
Yeah. You've got a mining project, say in some place. You've set up an EIA consultant company. Okay. That EIA consultant company does the EIA impact assessment. Now
It's like I am going to inspect myself.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
give myself the certificate.
But then that consulting company, it was very difficult to say that many of these companies are part of the same bigger project, But I kind of figured all of that out.
And which city? Did you talk about who these companies were?
Yeah. So I went to Chhattisgarh, I went to Nellore, where there was these 27 thermal power plants were coming up in Nellore, Krishnapatnam basically. I started my journey from there. And then I traveled to Konkan, Sindhudurg mining and several other places, And then I started... I wrote some 27 RTI I filed to get out the EIA reports. Because till the time I don't physically get these EIA reports and see about what are the environmental glitches that these guys have encountered and how they've got the clearances, I could only get that by reading those EIA reports. I remember I still have them, I think, 27 reports, such huge reports. And after this EIA reports are made, there's a panel of people in the ministry who, retired IAS officers and all, I think, who actually are supposed to go through the EIA reports and give their final take that, okay, this is right. And then it goes to the ministry for clearances and stuff like that. So a lot of these processes in between were not being adhered to and all of that. So I said, this is a great story and I have to investigate. I remember I investigated it for 4 months, after which my editor in 2011, he said, are you ever going to give me the story or no? So I'm like, if I do it, let me do it well, So I traveled to all these places, got information. There were a couple of people I couldn't write about. They were pulled out of my story. There was one EIA I remember from one mining company which was completely copied from a Russian EIA. And this project was somewhere in the Sayadri, Western Ghats. And they've used flora and fauna like spruce and birch, which is actually found in the cold areas.
Yeah.
And I was like, then I got in touch with the Russian EIA, who wrote the Russian EIA report, got in touch with him, got his information. I said, do you even know that your report has been plagiarized? He's like, no. Then I said, okay, is this the report that you have written? So he said, yes. And then I got into conversation with him as to how he went about doing it and, combined all of those.
So basically you unearthed this entire scam of how people were...
How environmental clearances are given, actually.
Wow.
So it was also called, I think the story was called The Green Trick or something like that.
Wow.
I can't remember. And before I left for my evenings, this was in 2011, I think October or November, my story appeared. I started working on it way back in
And what was
June.
the impact of the story? Did any action happen after that?
I believe so, that it was picked up in the parliament and, and these things have been happening. So that's the sad part of it, you do so much of investigation, you do these stories, but from a government policy point of view or the government perspective, things hardly change.
It's amazing. You see all these Hollywood movies where, these journalists investigate scams and whatever, Watergate and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And in India, of course, right now the environment is very tricky for journalism and we've been reading about all kinds of challenges journalists are facing.
Yes.
But you in 2011 went and actually did an investigative piece on the mining industry, which is supposed to be the most dangerous place. It's in Naxal areas.
It involved largely mining only.
Largely mining
and power
and of
plants.
course the most contentious issue, right? Because environment is being right now, I think, especially
environment was never considered an important subject, in the sense that
it was almost like, "Arey yaar, let's get ye kisi ko bhi report banwa do and ek tick mark karke pass
that
ho
is
jayega."
exactly how it's been happening even today. And I am glad that there was always this thing about not wanting to apply for awards and stuff like that because, every time you have to be around that place, you need to lobby, and these are the things that have been told to us, And So when I was leaving for my evening scholarship, this press club invitation came to fill in, give you nominations and all. And my editor said, why don't you apply for this award as well? So silently, I just applied. I got all my necessary information. I had to get printouts of my story and everything. I remember I was leaving in March. The day I was leaving, I actually sent a courier to the Mumbai Press Club, a physical copy, and I sent my email and everything, and I headed straight to the airport. And I completely forgot about it. And I remember not even checking my emails when I was in London. And I remember I was food shopping in M&S. The M&S food store at 8 o'clock with my Pakistani friends who were also part of the evening scholarship. And suddenly my colleague calls me up and he says, and I had only saved his number on my London mobile number. So I said, just in case, Business Today has anything to tell me or something which I need to cover in London, then I have one contact point apart from email. And he calls me up and he says, guess what? I'm catching a huge check of yours. You won an award and you're the first award. And guess what? Your first editor, Ayaz Memon, actually gave you this award. I said, wow. पैसे कितने मिले? So he's like, check is in my pocket. I said, listen, I know you're drunk and very happy. Please go back home with the check. I said, I don't care of the cardboard check, but the physical check, and please deposit it in my account tomorrow. And then next morning, actually, he sent out an email saying that, one of our colleagues has done so well. She's right now in evening. And also, he had written a lovely note, saying that she's also won this award.
But the best thing is that you can't take the investigator out of you, right? After this amazing investigative journalist piece which you did and you won an award, you did another investigative journalism piece.
Very recently, 2016,
which got you, I don't know, maybe you'll get an award for that too, but...
No, I did. I got a mention in the Red Ink Award.
Okay. And I think for people out there, you just now have to go and Google this. It is called Faking Mount Everest. So Anusha is possibly the only journalist who's been sitting in Mumbai and unearthing a scam which was happening on the top of Mount Everest. That's how big the scam was. Anusha, please tell us about how did you find these thieves on Mount Everest sitting here?
Yeah, so I was going through some stories of people. So it's general ritual, right? So when every year in May, there are so many Indians who go and climb Everest. And that year, of course, our common friend Kuntal was also climbing.
And of course, he's been on the show.
Yeah, exactly. So Kuntal was also climbing. And then I remember meeting him on June 3rd and, asking him about his experience and all of that. And while right now I wasn't associated with any newspaper, but I was still writing for Midday, on and off, very select stories. And June 5th, I came across this other story in 2016 saying that this first Maharashtra constable couple who've, reached Mount Everest and all.
And not only that, they got prizes and they got cash prize from the police.
They were supposed to get, I think they got a couple of awards and they had done a press conference in this. Then I saw the story in Indian Express. I immediately called Kuntal and said, kuch to gadbad hai, there's something not right about this.
These people look too fresh that they have climbed Mount Everest.
The picture itself didn't seem right. And then Kuntal gave me some instances and he explained to me a couple of things. Then he told me that you could probably go and check with so-and-so person. There's this lady in Thane and I called her up and she said, I filed a complaint, police complaint. And these guys are fraudsters and
they had photoshopped, right? What was
they had photoshopped. So I said, so what is the complaint that you have filed? Have they summit Everest? Because I had to be very careful because I was going to kind of take on these guys in public service without having any proper proof. I would have been defaming them without any proof, So I wanted to be absolutely correct and I wanted to see those complaints that they had sent out to the police commissioner of Pune and all of that because these guys were based in Pune. These constables were in Pune police. So they said ye sara photographs bhi galat hai, and
So how did this lady in Thane know about it?
because they had actually climbed some Australian 5 challenge with them, or it's called the Australian 10 challenge, where you're supposed to climb 10 peaks in Australia in like some 2 or 3 days. And these guys had an history. वो भी उन्होंने complete नहीं करा था ठीक से. So, and then, ours is a very small community in mountaineering. The moment somebody is on top of Everest, you know that the person is on top of Everest, and you know the entire history of how he came on top of Everest. So these guys had all the information and everything.
So these are 2 constables, right, in police?
The husband and
wife constable. They raise money from
their colleagues and friends and all that.
And that's not small amount, right? Yes. They must have like 50
about
lakhs.
70
lakhs. So they raise 70 lakhs and they say they're going to go and climb Mount Everest. And finally they come up with this photograph that we have summited Everest.
And with the Maharashtra police flag and even with the Indian flag and all of that. And
you smelt a rat?
Yes, I smelt a rat, and to add to the fuel to the fire was a couple of other mountaineering friends who like, no, you have to take this up, and you're the only one who can probably bring this to notice. And in the past also there have been a lot of fake, but then you cannot write any of these things without having proper proof.
And proof of climbing Everest. My point is that it is not like you had gone to the swimming pool or you have gone to the bhaji market.
So I had to be extremely careful about the kind of documents I was getting, whether they are authentic, all of that. Then I spoke to the police commissioner. Then after I was convinced, I called up midday and I said, here is the story I have. I said, I will not be able to do this on my own, so I need a reporter from your side in Pune to actually do the groundwork for me. I will guide her and all of that. So initially the editor was like, are you sure you want to kind of do this with somebody? I said, yeah, I'm 100% sure. The story is mine. But I need somebody else also, And I never have been one of those journalists who ever didn't want to share my contacts or do anything of that. I would give everybody my contacts. I would even give story ideas to other journalists and all. And my colleagues used to always say, how do you do this? I said, see, I'm very confident of myself. My story is my story. What I give the others may not be my story at all.
So somebody saying कि ये photoshopped है. To proving that.
Yeah, so what happened?
How did you prove it? Because I know even they were banned by the Nepalese government, right?
Yes. So what happened was my first story appeared saying that these guys have conned, Himalayan con or whatever is the headlines. The story appeared, and then next morning, I remember 6 o'clock, I get the call from this mountaineering guy. Says, Anusha. I said, yes. He said, I got your number from Kuntal. And the picture that has been used by these guys are mine. I said,
and they have morphed the face.
Yeah, they morphed his pictures with their face. So I said, are you sure? And then it started off. Series started one after the other. I started digging. I got more information. Then I did lots of story. I think I worked on that story for almost 14 months, relentlessly. And then eventually what happened...
So once you saw, once this guy said it's my photo...
Then he sent me all his original photos.
Then he sent you the original photos.
Yeah.
Then how did you convince, or then you spoke to people in Nepal also, right?
Yeah. Then I spoke to people in Nepal. I got in touch with the adventure sport company that these guys had hired. I had to speak to him and find out how things happened. And through him, I got to know that they had not even walked to base camp. They had flown into base camp.
So they didn't even climb base camp. Satyanas. I mean, I have done base camp.
Yeah, that's what I got to know. So
they didn't walk to base camp, and they claimed that they went to Everest.
Yeah. And people did see. Most people who were going to be summiting around that time had seen them in base camp, however. They might not have seen them trekking, but they saw them in base camp and all of that. But nobody remembers of seeing them in summit. Nobody remembers of even meeting them at Camp 2, Camp 3, because generally, you end up meeting these people, right? And then I spoke to the DOT in Nepal. It was a big challenge because I had to get the Pune police to get in touch with Nepal government, get that letter out, the summit certificate out.
So they did not have a summit certificate, or they did?
They had a summit certificate. I got that cancelled.
But how did they get the summit certificate if they never climbed the summit?
Because they've placed all these photographs, and obviously the Nepal government, the mountaineering department, are not gone into
So
keen
that's how they
investigation.
give you the summit certificate?
Yeah, so basically you need to have your photograph, your videos and all of that.
What if
and
you
they
climb
do.
Everest and you don't get, if the camera doesn't
So your
work?
Sherpa actually takes your photograph and he takes your video and all of that. And these guys did the similar thing, but these
So they
guys
probably stayed in the base camp for 30 days?
Yeah, more than that probably, yeah.
Because
They did.
I presume they had to at least be
Yeah.
on base camp.
Yeah, they did. And then they were like, so one of the liaison officer, then their Sherpa, all of them were hand in glove. They must have given them money. So these things happen. And unfortunately for them,
my
they
point
fell
is,
in my
things
hands.
happen, but then doing an investigation to the point that the Nepal government bans them, right? They can't enter
They
Nepal.
banned them first, and then I made sure that their certificates are cancelled. The summit certificates are cancelled.
And I think they can't even enter Nepal or something.
Yeah,
right?
they're banned for 10 years. They can't do mountaineering in Nepal. And 5 years, I think they can't enter the country. Something to that
And
effect, yeah.
you got that done. And then what happened in India? How did the police react to this? Because it was a big cake on the face of the police department too, right? Because,
Yeah, they didn't act. They were like not sure whether this is all right and all. But as the story started coming out and everything, then they had an internal inquiry and all of that. Then there were times where the couple actually called for a press meet and said that all of this is false, and they like literally said that I have defamed them and all sorts of accusations against me. I said, never mind. It's part and parcel of my career as a journalist, but I will make sure that these guys
And
don't
they are
get
finally
their-
fired from the police department?
Yes, they're fired from service. They cannot be in police anymore.
Bravo. So guys, all I can tell you is that you could be committing a fraud in Bermuda's Triangle. You could be on top of any mountain. You could be committing a fraud on moon. As long as there is Anusha, there is a huge chance that you will not only get caught, but you will also be taken to task. And I think that's the best part about how strong journalism is, right? Because
Yeah.
these things, because we see so many things wrong in the society.
Yeah.
But, today's world, we are tweeting and liking and, everybody is becoming an armchair activist.
Yeah.
But you have taken, and you could have also easily ignored it and said,
Yeah,
ha ha.
well, Vishal-
Like what happened recently, you saw the post I did on this
Mount
lady
Fuji.
who has climbed, the news story said that this lady has raised money from the local municipality to climb, the first woman to climb Maharashtra, to climb Mount Fuji. I just came back from Japan. Mount Fuji is like a,
And you, I think,
tourist
climbed
spot.
it 2 years ago.
Yeah, it is a tourist spot. And I'm like, how the hell is a municipality sponsoring a trip to the tourist spot?
Yeah.
Of course, but I did not have the courage, time and energy to kind of really pursue it and take it to task.
Yeah.
But what made you do that?
So I think for me, two things are very sacrosanct. One is journalism has to be done well. Secondly, mountaineering is very, very dear to me in the sense that you can't be going to a mountain and saying that I was on top of it. See, the worst
So
thing
they
about...
were trying to basically insult the profession of mountaineering, basically, or the
Just
art, the
just
sport of
mountains
mountaineering,
itself,
right?
And also you've insulted your own police
Because
fraternity,
when
flag.
you are a police department,
You
you are
can't
supposed
lie.
to be the ultimate upholder of truth and law and everything,
Yeah, and
right?
sadly, the problem is that nobody understands mountaineering, even from a journalist perspective. Now, I was only able
You saw
to...
the journalist who wrote the story that the highest
Exactly.
peak in Japan and all that, right?
Also, a lot of stories that have appeared on people summiting Mount Everest and all is what the mountaineer sells you. You have not been able to question. That's because you don't understand the sport. It's about many other sports that where
But I'm just
journalists
saying
write
that
about without understanding
what
the
stupid people
sport.
are, right? That they have raised 70 lakhs.
Yeah.
Then they go on a
No,
chopper.
but these questions were never asked, right? So when you...
No, because
when as
you
a
think,
journalist-
police department, husband, wife, they would be like really doing this well.
Also, see, when the first time when they said we climbed a Mount Everest, they have to ask what time did you climb and all of that. And there are certain time only that you can be on top of Mount Everest. You can't just give any out. But these are things which you need to know even if you have researched on Mount Everest or if you have been covering mountaineering and all. And that's where my expertise, I think, came, where I could make out that this picture is morphed, that sunlight is different, the original photographs were totally different. So it's sad. But then today we're having that kind of reporting where people don't understand the profession of mountaineering. So like for instance, when I was raising funds for Kilimanjaro also, right now when I've climbed with the blind and I've come back, I didn't get enough press. I just wanted a little bit of press to just say that I want to raise funds,
So here there are sighted people who are faking Everest. And you have, so by the way, for everybody here, just to kind of tell you, Anusha has just come back from an expedition which involved climbing Kilimanjaro. It was a very easy ride because she was accompanied by how many blind mountaineers?
3 blind guys.
3 blind and
10 sighted.
So here we are talking of the sighted people faking Everest and all these things. And Anusha took with her this whole challenge of taking possibly the first,
It was India's first inclusive climb to Kilimanjaro, yeah.
So what was the experience there?
Oh, it was wonderful because climbing with a blind is a totally different experience in a way that you learn so much. I've learned some new techniques of how to walk with the blind, and they're just like you and me, Vishal, honestly. And they actually have much stronger senses than we do. And I think because we are sighted and we have so many of all our senses working 24/7, we're constantly cribbing, complaining. But you look at them, they're so calm. And all through the walk, they were our strength, all through the walk.
The Vishal Gondal Show will be right back after this break.
Have you gotten yourself a gym membership and shown up only a few times? Are long working hours cutting your fitness goals short? How about you change things a little? Even a small effort can make a big difference. And I'll tell you how and what exactly. Hi guys, I'm Coach Urmi, and on the Kinetic Living podcast, you can look forward to some interesting stories of people who have changed the way they look at fitness after their kinetic journeys. Episodes out every Wednesday on the IVM app, website, and anywhere you get your podcast from.
No, but my point is that you did this amazing climb. Before that, you cycled with
Manali to Khardungla.
You did this tandem cycling with again a blind and the sighted ones. So what is it with you and taking these crazy challenges, right? I mean, these are people, we can't do this normally or even with fully abled people, and you are partnering with people with special abilities.
When I actually quit full-time journalism and I started doing work with the people of the mountains, be it disaster relief or whatever, the one thing I realized that there is so much you need to change. But if you're not going to be that change, you're never going to change anything. So for me, I've always believed in, if you want to change something, you be the change yourself. And 2016, when I met Divyanshu for the first time, I was researching for a show for BBC. And I just realized that there's a connect here. He wanted to do adventure sport. He was planning to start this organization. And I said, here I am, sighted, who has the mountaineering skills. All I need to do is merge the two. I didn't know then that I would do so much work in this space, or rather start working in this space. But I had decided that I want to do something in the space of inclusion of persons with disability in the outdoors. Because it's all about creating that equal opportunity, which most people who have not grown up with persons with disability or who have never studied with persons with disability will never understand. Because we've always been kept aloof from persons with disability, and then when they suddenly are there in mainstream with you, you don't know how to react and all. It took me some time, even before I got to know Divyanshu also, it took me some time to get to know him better. So when I met Divyanshu, I was quite inspired by his story, Here's this blind guy, and he's so independent. He does everything on his own. Many a time, now over a period of last couple of years that I know him, for the last 3-4 years that I know him, sometimes we forget he's blind, No,
Anusha, my point is not that. My point is that, see, we meet all these people. I have met Divyanshu, but meeting them, knowing them, and then taking a commitment of actually doing an expedition or doing the cycling trip. So my question to you is that what is making you do all these things? What is driving you to do this?
See, I've always been somebody who likes to share whatever I know, my skill sets or whatever. And for me, even if I can, probably help one person with what I know, and I'll be happy.
No, but my point is, for example,
for me, the driving...
we have also helped, but the way we helped is we gave whatever money we could do to support or connect you. I'm just saying that
True.
that is a very different kind of help.
For me, I really don't know what is driving me. It's just that I'm just happy doing what I'm doing. I mean, and people might think that it's a lot of...
you are pagal, you are mad. That is one reason. But what is
I
the... So when people don't have an explanation is when they say pagal hai. But I'm trying to figure out what is the explanation. Because you know what? There are people who have millions of such opportunities.
Yeah.
And we all, as I said, right, for us, doing a retweet is the way to contribute. For somebody, they donate something. Or for somebody else, it is about, clapping and cheering. But in your case, you really take it to the next level.
Yeah, because like I said, I always like to see a change. And to see that change, you have to change, So... till the time it's all nice to say that,
And were you always like this? I mean, my point is, even in school, were you doing this? Or was there a turning point which kind of made you do this?
I was always kind to people, or I always felt that empathy towards people who didn't have something or I had something and all. But as a child, I was quite brash. As a youngster, I don't think it came to me very easily. Well, I would write all my notes and sitting in the library and everything. I would easily give it away to all my friends who would sit outside the class and not take a single note. So I've always been the helping kind. But a lot of this has, I think...
So what is your ultimate goal? I mean, you are very young now, right? I mean, where do you see yourself 20 years later? You've already done all these climbing, you've done all these extreme things, you've unearthed scams and you've won awards. What are you going to do next?
I think I'm going to continue. I would like to do more work in the inclusion space. I'm just trying to see how can I take this to a level where it's no more just a dialogue. It becomes a way of life for a whole lot.
When you say inclusion, you're talking about the disability.
Persons with disability in the outdoors. So now I'm looking at, trying to get together with a few people who were there on this expedition to Kilimanjaro. We're trying to come up with some programs where we can train guides. As an asthmatic, I have faced no from so many adventure sport companies saying you'll come at your own risk. My own institute at Mountaineering Institute were not comfortable with me saying that I was an asthmatic and I came back for... So I don't want this to happen with a whole lot of people, whether he's an amputee, whether he's a single arm person, whether he's blind, he is fine and he has all the right to be in the outdoors like you and me are.
But so a lot of people have excuses, right? I mean, when, like a lot of people who want to pursue their dreams, they're like, oh, I have a family, I have this, I have responsibilities, I have to make money. In your case, you've been having all of this, right?
Yes.
But still you've been able to pursue it.
Yeah, so I've been very practical in my the way I go about doing things. I know I have a home, I have an old mother to take care of. I have a job which I have to earn to pay my bills. And I want to do this as well. So I have pretty much figured out a way wherein I can do all of these things without having any issues, or creating issues for myself. I keep myself fit, I'm healthy, and I take things one at a time, and I have a very practical approach to life. I don't dream and then figure out that, arey, ab ye nahi kar sakta hai. I make sure that, okay, I have this dream, now let me see how do I go about it. I kind of put together what I have, what I need, and how do I get that, what I need?
Also, Anusha, there is an important thing that you're single. So
Yes.
does that make a big difference? Do you think that you being a single has really helped you pursue this more than...
No, I don't think that is just a mere excuse.
Because a lot of people would say that,
Oh, well, I get that question thrown at my face every time. Oh, you can do all of these things because you're single. I have an 85-year-old mother at home who's equivalent to an 8-year-old, to be honest. And touch wood, she's hale and hearty and healthy and, she takes care of herself. But the point is that being single is not an excuse. I can be single and I can just be as lazy as so many other single people,
exactly.
But no, I mean, there is so much to do, and I feel this time itself is not enough. There is so much that one can do. And I feel very sad when people just say, even I wanted to do this, What is stopping you? You have to just take that first step. In everything that I have done I have just taken that first step. I have not thought of what the consequence is going to be. Even when I was raising funds for Kilimanjaro, when I was even putting this expedition together with the blind, how many people dissuaded me, They said, I don't think you're doing the right thing. Are you sure you want to take this risk? Kilimanjaro... for
Maybe
you
next
it is
time
not
you should plan
challenging.
Mount Fuji. That's a little more
That's
tougher.
a good one.
That's a little more tougher.
Yeah.
You can't even take equipment.
Yeah, and it was June and I'd still not got a sponsor, and my only thing was if I could only take the blind people if I got a sponsor. It had come to a stage where I'd almost decided I'll do it on my own, but I will do it for inclusion of persons with disability. And then there was this man who just, God sent, I would say, in that sense.
But that's exactly when you're doing good things, somehow God has a
Things
plan
just
for you.
happen.
It happens.
That's what has happened with me all the while. Now when I reflect back on a lot of things, like Uttarakhand floods, I had just come back from Himachal after 25 days of trekking and...
But what is it with you with any problem and why do you have to be the first one to go there?
It just happens, yaar. Kya kare?
Because you're single and you have all these time in the
I
world
don't
and
know.
all of that. That's the only explanation.
No.
Or you have a lot of money somewhere.
No way. Where do I have any
I don't
money?
know. I'm
In
just saying
journalism
that-
also I have not made money, yaar. But yeah, I'm happy.
Because people who are listening to this show are wondering exactly the same thing, Anusha. That the kind of stuff you've accomplished, people who are millionaires and billionaires have not been able to do this. Everybody wants to do this. They want to go and help the needy. They want to go and support the people with disability. They want to solve crimes on mountains. You've done it all.
Yeah. So I think it's about taking that first step, Vishal. I mean, in the sense that a lot of us want to do a whole lot of things. Some people have the
I would
money
say that
and they
you are
would
the
do it.
billionaire of courage.
Probably.
You have so much courage that you can actually do this. People talk about this. Like I have said so many times, kabhi disaster relief ke liye jana chahiye. I remember when the Nepal thing happened,
Yes.
Nepal earthquake, you were again among the first few people who went there.
I had just come back from Nepal, EBC at that time, and I decided to go back. And thankfully, at that point in time, Open also wanted me to write an article because I had just come back. So I took that opportunity to say, okay, going, my tickets are done, coming, my tickets are done. Now, what I do there, I will figure it out. And that is when I started writing for Rediff. And, I made sure that, that is what I don't think of the consequences so much right at the beginning, I just decide, okay, let me go. And I'm pretty confident that things will fall in its place. And that's how it happened. 3 months, I lived in Nepal and things just fell in place. There was no glitches in whatsoever.
As I said, in your case, truly the saying that the mountain comes to Muhammad is true. That you plan something and somehow the world is conspiring a plan to make it happen. And the craziest plans. I'm going to ride a cycle with blind to Khardungla, I'm going to go to Kilimanjaro. So what is the most crazy thing you're going to do? And what I think it's going to be? You're going to take 5 blind, 5 amputees, maybe 10 people who are not having any limbs, maybe 4 Paralympians, and you will take them to Everest. And from that Everest camp, you're going to take them to some other mountain, or you'll do the 7th summit. What is the next crazy idea?
Next crazy idea is not yet in my mind as yet, but I have to just look for that one crazy idea that I want to go ahead and...
All your ideas are already very crazy.
Yeah, no, for next year it has to be something more
God.
interesting, I guess.
More
something,
interesting.
Yeah, right now it's not in my... I haven't thought of it. But I'm glad that I have proved a lot of people wrong even when they told me
So
that...
do you ever get bored?
Not really. I mean, I have figured out ways. See, another thing, Vishal, you must understand that when you're single, no, you tend to love yourself so much that you find ways to keep yourself happy in some way or the other. So my friends are always wondering, how do I go watch movies alone? How I go to a coffee shop. The best thing, pastime for me, I can sit in a coffee shop for hours together and just observe people. I just love doing that, I don't know if you've ever done that. You must try it. It's just great fun.
I only do meetings in coffee shops.
And then I, write down on my notes, that behaviors of people in that sense. And then I'm like trying to gauge, like, how would this person be? How would that person be? It's quite an interesting thing to keep yourself busy and not get bored, actually. So I do a lot of these kind of crazy things.
And don't you feel lonely?
I do. I mean, as any other normal human being, you do feel lonely. But mountains are your company.
Mountains are there. Now I got the idea.
Mountains are your company.
I wish I was single so that I could also do all these things. But you know what? I'm not. But But I think that's an excuse. So coming back to some of the things which have inspired you. So do you do a lot of reading?
I do a lot of reading.
And what are the books which have made a big impact in your life?
So, one of the book is Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. I like all of his Richard Bach books. They're quite philosophical in that. I read a lot of non-fiction books. Many of the journalists would like a lot of fiction books, but I'm not so much into fiction nowadays. I mean, a couple of years back, I moved to non-fiction. I read So Jonathan Livingston Seagull book is very interesting. It's a very short book, actually, and everybody should read it. It's my favorite book to give away as gift as well. It talks about life. It talks about self-perfection. It talks about... how do you deal with yourself and in various such situations. And I think a lot of what I do is probably coming out of from there,
And which are the other books?
Then another very good book I like is The Climb, of course, which is a mountaineering book, which is a rebuttal to what John Krakauer wrote, Into Thin Air. The Climb is by Anatoly Bukreev. It's truly a wonderful book. And
Has the movie come?
I'm
more the movie person.
Yeah, I know that. But probably there's an audio book you must listen to. So
okay.
Anatoly Bukreev actually here talks of his situation in the mountain, which John Krakauer has actually talked of a lot of disagreements with this Russian guide Anatoly Bukreev. So it's a very interesting book. There are many other books, but these three comes to my mind. And the third one is a very humorous book called Almost Single by Advaita Kala. Now, I don't like a lot of Indian writers. I like more Pakistani writers, actually, and I shouldn't be talking like that. But Advaita Kala's book called Most Single is one of my books where I feel lonely. I take Almost Single and I'm reading it and I'm like in splits after that, and it makes you feel good. It's about
I've not read any of these books, so they are certainly going to be in my list.
It's about these three women and they're talking about their single status. They want to be single, and then you have this one parent in the house which wants to get you married and stuff like that. So it's great. It's hilarious and it keeps you humorous.
And how do you keep yourself fit? What is your regime like?
That's a good question. And I wake up at 5:15 in the morning. I
too early.
Get out by 5:45. I take my cycle and I hit the roads. I cycle for about 20 minutes or so. Then I hit the gym. So 3 days in a week I hit the gym for strength training, and 2 days I do functional and cycling. Weekends, it's either 1 day of the week is my rest day, and 1 day of the weekend will be either a long ride on a cycle or I take people on treks.
Wow, that's quite a plan.
Yes.
And what is your favorite food?
My favorite food is vegetarian ghar ka khana. I love curd rice.
Yeah,
yes.
Finally the tam-bram.
Whether or not I have anything, I love my curd rice. And every day I have to have my curd rice. Every day I have to have my curd rice. I mean, whether you call me a tambram, whatever, curd rice is curd rice.
Well, that's probably the curd rice which is giving you all this strength in your brain and all the
probably
all the health and everything else.
Yeah.
Tell me, Anusha, when it comes to people who have inspired you, do you have any names in mind?
Not really, but from mountaineering, I can say that I'm pretty much inspired by Bachandri ma'am. I worked with her, and I like the work that she's been doing in Jharkhand and Jamshedpur, and I really hold her to high esteem. Otherwise, I think there's nobody particular that I can say I'm inspired by. It's all very situational in that sense, I would say. You know, like
From
I
the
am
journalist fraternity, who are your favorite journalists? Not
That's
even
a
one.
tough
That's a
question.
tough question.
Yeah, I always liked Ayaz Memon as my editor, and I credit all my for the kind of journalist that I am today. I would credit all my editors. So be it Ayaz, be it my Business Today editor Brian Carvalho, who's excellent, or PG Matai, who was in Business Standard. I have a couple of other names from Business Standard who've been very good mentors in that sense. So, but being inspired and wanting to follow somebody's path has never been mine. I've always
if
followed
you could change
my own
one
path.
thing in your life, if you had the time machine to go back, what would that be?
I don't think I'd want to change anything. I'm very happy with the way my life has taken turns, in the sense that there are probably some incidents that have happened in my life. If that had not happened, I'd just be another journalist working in some other newspaper or a magazine and doing the same mundane things, you know. But I'm glad that certain instances have happened in my life, and that kind of has led me to be the kind of person I am today.
And what is the last thing you bought technology under 10,000, which you end up using a lot?
It's a safety rope that I've bought, 20
That's not
meter.
technology.
Not technology, okay. Power bank,
Oh.
which works in the mountains
Yeah,
also.
that's a good one. That's an important thing here.
Yeah.
So Anusha, again, as I said, I think we can go on. And of course, given that you are going to do so many more exciting things, we are going to definitely get you back on the show.
Yes.
But I want to kind of tell everybody out here that, so far you have had shows in my guests who are CEOs and artists and all kinds of super successful people. But I'm actually always humbled and always inspired by Anusha, because she has not only been doing and talking about, all these things. We all want to change the world. We all want to inspire. We want also support. We all want to pursue and win awards. And she has done that in her field of journalism. She has done that in her field of mountaineering, and she is now doing that in her field of inclusiveness. Anusha, I have to salute you, and would want to end by you talking about your message to people out there who are not mountaineering or who are not pursuing your dreams.
So my message to people out there would be that don't think about what the consequence is going to be. If you want to change something, go ahead and take that first step, because till the time you don't take that first step, you'll never know what you're getting into. It's okay to make mistakes. I have made mistakes, and there's always a chance to correct your mistakes. It's not that if you made a mistake, it's the dead end and it's end of it all. It's not so. So please go ahead, take that chance, and you will see that you are able to do what I do in normal course
so
of
on
life.
that note, thanks a lot, Anusha, and thanks everybody. This is the last episode of our season 2. We are going to soon come back with our season 3 and hoping to get a lot more guests on the show with inspiring stories. But as always, the whole idea behind the show, behind what I'm trying to do at Beneath the Force, was to deconstruct, to go in depth of people like Anusha, people like Vivek, people like all the other guests on the show who have been able to achieve success in whatever they are doing, and come back to you with the key insights on how they have done it. So I hope we've been able to inspire some of you, whether you want to go write a piece of journalism, whether you want to go climb a mountain, or whether you want to just take the first step outside your couch and do something. I think that's more important. And with that note, thanks a lot, Anusha, and all excited for season 3, hopefully now.
Yes, thank you so much, Vishal. And yes, we're going to come back with a bag in season 3.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Give me a word. या कोई भी लाइन. कुछ भी हो सकता है यार. क्या कहा आपने? टोपी. Okay. Mohan Joshi hated wearing topis. He felt suffocated in them. टोपी पहनते ही उसे स्कूल की याद आती थी. Where of course he had no choice but to wear a टोपी. But जिस दिन पास आउट हुआ, उसी दिन उसने अपने टोपी का bonfire बना दिया. And since then, he'd never worn a cap or a hat. ना कड़कती धूप में, and not even to बचो from the ठंडी. But from Monday 26th February, Mohan Joshi had to wear a topi all the time. Why? Because if he didn't, everyone around him knew exactly what kya soch raha tha. They knew that he was wondering how the girl in the yellow churidar would look bina kapde ke. They knew when he was calling the boss a sadela tomato. They knew everything. पर ये सब हुआ कैसे? अरे भाई, यही तो स्टोरी है. और ये स्टोरी आप ही ने मुझे दिया by giving me the starting word. यही तो है The Croc's Tales. Words आपके, कहानी आपके लिए. Catch the stories on Monday and Thursday on the IVM website, app, and anywhere you get your podcast from. See you soon.
Shunyavan, 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 Shunyavan.
$1 billion acquisition. Another copycat startup got formed.
No, the tech world in India is surely moving double the speed of this voiceover.
Tune in to Shunya One every Tuesday to catch us talking to the smartest people we know on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.